What's up guys, welcome back to the MSR workshop. So I have another unboxing for you. This is going to be a new diode laser with it sent to me for review. I think you'll like this one, so stick around. So just recently I had a company reach out to me and wanted to know if I wanted to try out one of their new diode lasers. The company that I'm talking about is Acmer, and it's spelled A-C-M-E-R. So the diode laser that they sent me is actually a mini diode laser, and it's a little 6-watt laser. So we're going to get this unboxed first, and then we're going to go over to LightBurn and try it out and see what this little guy can do. So Acmer reached out to me and they wanted to know if I wanted to try out one of their lasers. Now they offer 3 different power models, and the 6-watt was the highest wattage output model that they offered with this particular laser. And if you're looking for a laser, I don't really recommend anything less than 6 watts. And 5 to 6 watts is going to be the max for a single diode laser unit. Now there's other units out there that are combining multiple diodes, 6 watts, to form bigger, more powerful diode lasers. So this is a single 6-watt. So let's go ahead and get this opened up to see what we have in the box. See what we have in the box. So first we have a nice looking manual. So we have some black, presumably aluminum cards. They're pretty thin. I get these are probably like 0.5 mils. But we'll measure those with the calipers. And user manual. And wow, it's actually a color manual. And it looks pretty decent. Looks like a lot of this manual is probably covering use with the provided program that they're using. But one of my other recommendations is it has to be compatible with LightBurn for me to even be interested in it, because LightBurn is the gold standard really out there for most and all diode lasers. Now, a couple of companies have their own proprietary software, Glowforge being one of them, which does not work with LightBurn at all, and it is a cloud-based, so I don't really recommend that because, you know, if you want the freedom to create, LightBurn is really where it's at. But enough said on that. Let's go ahead and get this guy unboxed here. Take that out and see what we've got. So this looks like it is our little 6-watt diode unit. Let's see if it says the wattage on here anywhere. It does not. Little bitty guy though. Power cord. Some fancy dancy green safety glasses. Looks like some more test material. This is probably a 3 mil piece of Baltic birch plywood. Set of Allen keys. You do have some red acrylic in here. I am not sure if this is just designed for a diode laser, because you know most diode lasers cannot engrave on acrylics, but we will try it anyways. And then we have the unit itself. Let's see if we can lift this out. Okay, so also a USB-C cable, which is nice. Most units these days hopefully should be coming out with USB-C connections, because the old USB connections are really kind of phasing out. At least I hope they are, so them including a USB-C is a nice touch. And it looks like we have our unit, which is already completely assembled other than the diode head unit. And just do that, we'll pick some of this tape off. This should just slide right on there. And then we should have just one little cable on the top to connect. And it looks like we're done. So one thing that's very interesting, this unit being as small as it is, I was not expecting them to have a micro switch for one of your homing buttons, but it does. So that's really cool. Does it have an, oh look, it does. So it has a micro switch home button on the bottom as well. So I've gotten some much bigger units that have been quite a bit more expensive that do not have limit switches. So that is a very nice, very, very nice little touch. You got it on and off, USB-C, and power. Now, not complaining too much. I probably would have preferred your connections probably on the back and then just left your front for the power so you don't have a bunch of cords running off the front, but that is not a big deal. So let's take this over to LightBurn and go ahead and set it up. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and make sure that my USB is plugged in first. Next, we're going to go ahead and plug the power cord in, and we are going to jump over to LightBurn. And in theory, this should connect right up. All right, so we're going to turn our device on. We're going to go to Devices, hit Find My Laser. All right, so it did find it. 130 by 130 millimeters. I'm going to hit Add Device. This is your bed, just in case. Hit Next, Finish, and OK. So this is our GRBL. Okay, so now we're going to close LightBurn and reopen it. And a lot of times after adding a laser, you have to turn it off and turn it back on. And it just homed automatically. Very cool. And there we go. So the first project that we are going to try to do is we are going to try and do, let's just do a test on this plywood they sent, and I actually just measured it, and it is actually a 2 mil. I've already set the height on that 2 mil, so we'll go ahead and set that in there. And now I'm just going to type in test. Move that guy up just a little bit. Okay, so we're going to do test, and I'm going to duplicate that and just do one more right below it. So the first one, I'm going to have it do a line. Actually, we're going to do the fill, and we're going to do 150 millimeters a second at, we'll just do 35% power. Lines per inch, let's just go to 200. We'll do a bidirectional fill, and we'll hit OK on that one. The second one, we'll change the color of it, and we'll do that to a line. And so I'm going to go ahead and set that at 5 millimeters a second at 80% power, just to see if we can cut. So now let's go ahead and try this, and we'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot this in real time just to see what kind of actual speeds we do. So hit start. Okay guys, so let's see if it cut through this. Well, the T came through. Actually, that's about a good setting. Drop everything through, and these are actually dropping through really cleanly. They're actually fitting pretty tight. And the edges are really not that charred at all. I'm not getting any soot on my fingers. So we did that at 80% power at 5 millimeters a second, and it cuts through 2 millimeter plywood beautifully. I probably wouldn't try to do it any faster, just because it probably won't do it. The engraving test did not too bad. It's pretty light, so I probably need to slow that down, but it did a pretty decent job. Now let's try engraving some artwork on here. Okay guys, so let's take a look and see what it did. So something weird happened. I had to restart this about 3 times. And I'm not super duper good with producing images, but that seemed to do a pretty good job. I may mess with this a little bit more, but I'm sure I can improve that. But that was just a grayscale image of a lion, actually a tiger. So now let's just try some acrylic. Supposedly you can't do acrylic, but I've got 3 different types of acrylic. I've got a black mirrored acrylic, I've got a clear one with the backing on, and then I have got a white acrylic that is not see-through by any means. So we'll just try a couple little cuts on this stuff. And we'll get our laser height set. Let's just set this to 100% and let's just drop this down to say 2 millimeters a second and start. So, nope. Did not work. So let's just jump right to the white stuff, because I know it's not see-through. I know for sure that the clear is not going to work. And we'll go ahead and frame that one. We'll put that back to 5 and 100% and hit start. So nothing out the back side. And it really just kind of melted that, so did not cut through it. So let's do one more test, and let's try a fill on a piece of black acrylic and just kind of see if I can get it to fill anything. So it did nothing, unfortunately, except took the backing off and just left the adhesive there because it's still like sticky. So did not cut into it, unfortunately, which we know diode lasers can't do that, but hey, I thought it was worth a shot. Guys, so we're going to try that lion picture one more time, but we are going to try this as a grayscale image because I can set the minimum and maximum power maybe to have more variation in grayscale coloring. Now I'm going to set my power to a 60% power max and a minimum of 5%, and I'm going to set my speed to about 150 millimeters a second. Now I was looking through the manual and I did not find the minimum and maximum speeds that this could go at. Mainly the maximum speed, what I was concerned about. So I will do some more digging and throw that up on the screen here if I find what your max limits are on this. But let's try this. This is actually a piece of maple that I had cut out. So let's see if it does a different job on maple. All right, guys, so The engraving paused about halfway through. I've had this happen about 3 times. It could be having to do with my USB-C cord being long. I know sometimes long cords have trouble with data transfer. But this is kind of what I got so far. Not too bad. I'll have to mess with it some more. But it looks pretty good on maple. Being maple that it's harder, probably doesn't burn quite as well, so I could have upped my power settings just a little bit. I was only at 60% power. And I did find out the speed. It is about 7,000 millimeters per minute, which is about somewhere like 116 millimeters a second is the max speed, so not super fast. I have this, of course, set to 150, which is way above what this thing can actually do. So I'll have to take that into account. I could have left it at 60% power and just backed it down to 100, and I probably would have got the shading that I wanted. In real life, this is actually quite a bit lighter than it looks on camera, but not too bad. So we'll call that quits for this test video and unboxing. And so the next video that I will do, I will actually do a project where we will go ahead and make a business card. Now these are these little, I think little metal business cards that this company sent with these machines. There's 2 of them. So I'll probably play with this a little bit off camera just to make sure I get the settings right to show you guys. And then I'll show you how you can make a little business card. All right, guys, that is the end of this video. I hope you liked it. This little Acmer 6-watt diode laser is a pretty interesting little laser. It's pretty cool, actually. The small form factor makes it really neat and portable. I mean, it's so light. And the neat thing about this is that you can take this to your project, not the other way around. So if you want to, say, put a logo on something that you've already built, say on the back of a cutting board, you don't have to try to maneuver big panels or big items around. You just bring this to your item, set it over the top, and you are good to go. Now, I did have the issue where it was pausing during a couple of my engravings. Most likely that's a data transfer issue. So I will try a different cord next time. Instead of a USB double-ended cord, I will try a USB to USB-C cord, see if I have better luck with that. But I will be doing another video on that where we're actually making something. So stay tuned for that next video. And if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, or if I left anything out, be sure and leave those below. But I will try to put all the information about this laser in the description as well, and where you can pick up one of these. Until next time, guys, thanks again.